The COVID-19 pandemic has left the world grappling with its after effects. Governments are developing new strategies to revive their economies and to assist their citizens without the contribution of major income sectors such as tourism. The government of Dominica is no different. Being a small developing country with hundreds of people employed in tourism, the government, led by Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Investments, Economic Affairs, Planning, Resilience, Sustainable Development, Telecommunications and Broadcasting, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit came up with innovative ways to help those affected. But like every other time Dominica has faced towering obstacles, Prime Minister Skerrit and his Labour Party administration have come up with a recovery plan to steer Dominica to a path of development that benefits all citizens. In an address to the nation on Sunday, May 17, 2020, Prime Minister Skerrit announced numerous new initiatives to help those who lost their jobs, small business owners who were affected, and the bus drivers who had to make accommodations to facilitate social distancing. Prime Minister Skerrit says a huge decline in tax revenue has been recorded since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of Dominica's biggest stream of income, the Citizenship by Investment program, has also declined due to the global impact of COVID-19.
As we move forward, there are also additional measures we must take to help cushion the effects of the pandemic on our citizens, as well as the plan to transition to the further reopening of the economy. We have spent almost $22 million in direct costs in our response to the pandemic so far. And there will be increasing demands to spend more, even at a time when, for obvious reasons, our revenues are plummeting. For the month of April 2020, collections from personal income tax declined by 12%. Corporate income tax declined by 91%. Value-added tax declined by 34%. Excise tax 30%, and import duties by 19%. Similarly, as expected, we have seen a decline in CBI revenue. Taxes collected by the Customs Division are estimated to decline by an average of 30% for the months of May to June 2020. Taxes collected by the Inland Revenue Division are projected to fall by an average of 20% for that same period. This must be viewed in the context of a country that is still recovering from the utter devastation caused by Hurricane Maria less than 3 years ago.
Government has worked with local financial institutions to accommodate customers during the pandemic. In many cases, a deferment on loan payments were offered to the customers.
Notwithstanding the negative impact of the pandemic on government's fiscal situation, we need to address the economic challenges currently being encountered by many of our residents and businesses has not been ignored. Very early on, with the assistance of the central bank, we engaged with financial institutions to provide relief to customers from payment of loans, mortgages, and credit card payments. In most instances, customers have the option to defer payments for a period of up to 6 months. And I'm advised that many people are taking advantage of that option. We also extended the deadline for the filing of personal and corporate income tax returns, and the payment of income tax was extended by 3 months for companies with financial year ending January 2020 to June 2020. We will also give consideration to waiving penalties for businesses that enter into payment plans within 6 months of the new payment deadline for amounts due in respect of the same tax periods.
Assistance will also be provided to farmers at all levels. Prime Minister Skerrit announced that $10 million EC dollars will be committed by the government to fund this initiative.
An additional $10 million EC dollars under the Contingency Emergency Response component of the Emergency Agriculture Livelihoods Project. Support will be provided to crop and livestock farmers. This will include the provision of planting materials, essential inputs such as fertilizer, small farming implements, and animal feed. To assist with meeting the cost of farm labor and other direct costs, cash grants have been approved to approximately 2,500 individual crop farmers. The amount of these grants is based on the size of the farmer's holding. Farmers with small holdings will receive grants of EC $700, medium holdings EC $1,400, and large holdings EC $2,800. This intervention is valued at EC $3.5 million. We also have an ambitious seedlings program, as well as direct assistance to pork and poultry farmers.
The government of Dominica is purchasing produce directly from farmers. According to the Prime Minister, this produce will then be given to underprivileged families.
We are confident that the interventions by the government will help lower the food import bill, reduce household expenditure, improve dietary quality, and increase sustainable employment. We should also see higher export volumes and increased income for families. Residents are encouraged to produce as much as possible, while government is doing its part to ensure that there are markets available for the sale of your produce. We have also agreed to purchase fresh produce and fish from farmers and fishers who are prepared to sell directly to government. Some of these produce will also be distributed to the most vulnerable in our communities. An amount of $3 million has been set aside to facilitate this program.
The government will soon be implementing multiple infrastructure projects with expenditure of up to $100 million. Total additional investments in construction are expected to amount to at least $296.8 million. Contractors will be employed on numerous government projects to increase cash flow in communities around Dominica.
Local contractors will be engaged, which will ensure job creation and the circulation of money in the community, while contributing to the improvement of the aesthetics of our communities. Government will also pay small contractors and merchants with amounts owed of $100,000 and less in the coming days, utilizing the resources approved by the IMF under the Rapid Credit Facility. The intention is that small contractors will be in a position to resume work on small projects and complete these works in the coming weeks and months. Being mindful of the approaching hurricane season, government will also continue its aggressive housing program and accelerate it where possible.
Adjustments were also made to pre-existing loan facilities at the Agricultural Industrial Development Bank to ensure that beneficiaries are able to continue operations without the added obstacle of loan payments.
Government had taken the extraordinary step after Maria to make loan financing available at the aid bank to our farmers, hoteliers, and the manufacturing sector at attractive rates of 2%, with a moratorium on payment of 6 to 12 months. Mindful of the extraordinary circumstances caused by COVID-19 pandemic, government is providing further relief to beneficiaries of that special loan facility. This will include no payment on principal for a year and on interest payment for 6 months. This deferment of payment will allow borrowers in the tourism sector, the manufacturers and farmers to use whatever cash they receive during the next 6 months to meet salary payments and continue their operations without the added burden of loan repayments.
The Prime Minister has commended business owners who kept their staff on even during this pandemic.
At the national level, A major concern during this pandemic is the loss of livelihoods and income among workers. For individual households, it is the payment of mortgages and basic living expenses. The DAC has advised that its members have retained their pre-COVID-19 pandemic staff. Government has also spoken directly with the top largest private sector employers. I am advised that 88% of these employers have held on to their full complement of staff, while the other 12% have released 15%, or approximately 90 persons. These employers should be commended highly for their stellar contribution to the well-being of the employees and families. They have agreed to hold on and partner with the government to ensure the social stability of the country in these very difficult and uncertain times.
The Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association has revealed that 2,082 employees have been released from the tourism sector. This figure does not include people engaged with travel agencies and rental companies and some of the other tourism services. Prime Minister Skerrit says funds have been made available for those who lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic. The funds will be managed by the Dominica Social Security.
Although some of the employers may not have been affected or have resumed operation, the future uncertainties and the need for social distancing have resulted in many remaining unemployed or underemployed. Heads of families and single persons who are currently no longer employed will receive income support in the amount of $600 and $400 respectively for the period April 2020 to June 2020 in the first instance.
Access to these funds were made available from May 22, 2020. Payment of the first installments will be due 6 months after the first receipt of the loan. This loan facility of $5 million in the first instance will be administered by the Aid Bank. The government of Dominica will grant businesses a concession in the form of an 8% reduction in the corporate income tax applied to their chargeable income.
The negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been felt by all, but a greater blow has been felt by the tourism sector. Several of the measures already mentioned will benefit persons in that sector, including the special facility loans at the Aid Bank, the moratorium on loan repayments, the grants to persons in the sector who are no longer employed, and the self-employed whose business has been closed, and also access to the agricultural program. Hotels will be allowed to import several items on special concessions for 6 months, starting June 1, 2020. As an expression of gratitude for the social responsibility displayed by a great majority of employers in this country, the government will grant a rebate to companies equivalent to an 8% reduction in the corporate income tax rate applied to their chargeable income for income years ending December 31, 2019 and between January 1, 2020 and June 30, 2020. This income tax rate reduction from 25% to 17% of chargeable income will apply to companies which have signed agreements with the government committing to continue to employ at least 80% of their staffing complement as of January 1, 2020 for a period of 12 months from the date of the granting of the rebate. Revenue foregone by this measure is estimated at $7.68 million.
There will be duty-free concessions on the import of hygiene products to further encourage citizens to practice the necessary precautionary measures.
The government of Dominica will reduce to 0% the import duty and the value-added tax, which are now charged on such things as disinfectants, cleaning supplies, protective gears, and face masks. This will be implemented immediately for 6 months in the first instance. It is estimated that those measures will cost the government $1.7 million in lost revenues. But we felt it urgent and necessary to help residents and businesses cushion the cost of the increased measures they have to take to ensure that proper hygiene is maintained. As a responsible government, we must take action to ensure a balanced approach and the sustainability of the healthcare system, government's finances, and the economy.
The government plans to fund all these initiatives through various avenues, including loans and CBI revenue, among others.
We intend to finance the mentioned measures through a combination of loans, government revenue, including the CBI funds, and reduction in recurrent expenditure. As part of the shared responsibility concept to face the challenges of COVID-19, the government of Dominica will establish a fund to allow Dominicans resident overseas, including our new economic citizens and CBI agents, to make a tangible contribution to the current socio-economic challenges caused by COVID-19. The objective is to support vulnerable households for a period of 6 months to help alleviate the social and economic impacts caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
With 0 active cases, businesses are continuing to reopen and economic improvement is slowly being made. More restrictions are being eased as the country tries to find its way to a new normal.
As we gradually reopen, it is imperative that we take all the necessary measures to slow the potential spread of the virus throughout our society. Our approach must be measured. We have seen that some countries took quick measures to reopen, and they have had to review that decision in light of a new wave of the virus. We are learning, and we need to learn more from the experience of other countries, and importantly, listen to the science. Saving lives is our utmost priority. In respect of all of these stages, proper planning is required. The appropriate protocols and guidelines are being developed for each sector and will be shared with you by the Ministry of Health at the appropriate time. I cannot overemphasize the need to adhere strictly to all health protocols. I have instructed that the environmental health officers conduct random checks on businesses to ensure that all protocols are being followed. We have noted that as restrictions are being lifted, there is a sense of returning to business as usual. The threat of COVID-19 is not over, and until a vaccine is found, we must function as if everybody is infected. In that regard, if you do not need to be out to access services or to go to work, we urge you to stay at home and maintain your distance from others outside of your home circle. If you go out walking or to access beaches or rivers, limit your time there. Fellow Dominicans, friends, we ask for your continued cooperation and support so that Dominica can successfully navigate this pandemic. I thank once again all of our frontline workers and essential service providers for their yeoman service to their fellow men and country. Throughout history, our country has faced many challenges, and on each occasion, our people have risen to the task. This is another moment in history.
Like every other obstacle faced by Dominica, including Tropical Storm Erica in 2015 and Hurricane Maria in 2017, Dominica can and will bounce back in a better state of development if all citizens work together.
I want to encourage all of us to embrace the concept of shared responsibility. We need to look out for each other, and especially for the most vulnerable amongst us. We are in a situation that is not of our own making, and practically overnight, our lives have been altered. Fellow Dominicans, we must be realistic and pragmatic. If this situation continues for an extended period, the government will have no choice but to make significant cuts. While the government has taken no decision to terminate anyone's employment or salary, we should not take this for granted, as no one knows how long the challenges will persist. People should not take advantage of the work from home protocols to be unproductive, because in the end, all of us will lose out. I want to encourage all citizens to curtail unnecessary expenditures and be creative and innovative in seeking out job opportunities in other areas.
Kubia John for the Government Information Service.